VigilanteWilliamson here with a very simple question, and that is, what is going on with both of these teams, both the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans? Both not getting off to the start that you would have liked, though you might say the Texans are a little bit better. They obviously won Sunday's game in a blowout, 44-10. But these are both teams I thought were going to compete for the Super Bowl. I picked Houston to go to the Super Bowl. I'm still sort of leaning on that pick, but I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I that's what I picked at the beginning of the year. I got to live with it. I got to live with what I picked. But that notwithstanding, what I think is going to happen is been a little up and down. Pause. It's getting a little bit better. They're going into their bye after a dominant win against a very injured and very malign-looking Baltimore Ravens team. My other Super Bowl pick, the Detroit Lions, kind of knocked away the spirit of the Ravens. Maybe the Bills did. I'm not sure. But the Ravens right now are 1-4 after a tough start. Houston 2-3. And I want to talk about both of these teams. I'm going to reference the game, of course. But again, these teams are teams that a lot of us thought were going to compete for the Super Bowl. And I have the sneaky suspicion they both might make the playoffs despite where it looks. Or at least they both can. I'm not going to say they both will, but they both can. I just want to talk about some of the different scenarios. To kind of start, let's talk about a team that Houston faced in its first game, the Rams, and what they did last year. They started off 1-5, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, 1-4, actually. They went into a bye, and then they went 9-3 the rest of the way, ended up winning their division. And so that's what kind of both of these teams are hoping to do. Houston's going into their bye this coming week. The Ravens have their bye next week. I'm not sure if they can get over, ironically enough, the Rams themselves in their game before their bye, so they may enter that bye 1-5, and there's almost no made to it. But any given Sunday, all that good stuff. And the Rams just lost the game against a much injured team, so who knows? But that notwithstanding, they have a lot of winnable games, the Ravens do, coming out of their bye. So I think both teams have the chance, the possibility to turn their seasons around despite where they are. Let's talk about the team that's closer to it in the Houston Texans first, and then we'll get into the Ravens. They started off, now looking back, you can look at all these losses and say, hey, these are all division leaders, or, well, the Rams aren't because, again, they lost to the 49ers. But these are all really good teams and probably contenders. They lost to the Rams 14-9. They lost to Tampa Bay 19-20, so only by 1 point. And I've said in other videos, and I'm not sure if they're all out, but Baker Mayfield will be my MVP if I had to pick one through the first fourth of the season. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That loss has aged well, seeing what the Jags just did to the Chiefs. They beat the Tennessee Titans. They beat the Baltimore Ravens. So you look at their schedule and say, maybe they just face their tough part early on. I mean, coming out the bye, they still have some heat. Their first three teams after are going to be the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Denver Broncos, and then that Jaguars team that beat them. So they got a lot of tough games coming back from this bye. So this idea that, they only lost to tough teams. Well, they got more tough teams to face. They have a much less favorable schedule than the Ravens themselves, which we'll get to in a second. But I honestly think they have a better team. They don't have as many injuries, though there are some. Jalen Reed, Will Anderson, which is a very important injury. But these are for last week. I don't have this week's injuries. But Nico Collins was dealing with something. Stingley was dealing with something. So you got a lot of players that have potential to have more dangerous or more lengthy injuries. That there are players dealing with stuff on the Texans side, but they're not missing a lot of time. At least not yet. Or not anywhere to the extent, I should say, to the Ravens, because I think Jalen Reed did end up missing the game on Sunday. Again, 44-10, shellacking. The real question is this going to sustain? As of after Sunday, they now have the number 1 ranked defense, which they had going in, I believe, and the number 20th ranked offense. At one point in the season, they were the number 32 ranked offense. But you have kind of blowout games, and now it makes you look a little bit better of an offense than you are. And I say blowout games, they sort of blew out the Tennessee Titans, but they weren't really good to that fourth quarter. And then you blow out the Ravens, who aren't really we'll get into them. But not only are they not healthy, they're not really in the right mind space. This could be a transitional year for the Ravens. They got a lot going on. And so, yeah, you blew them out, but is this offense fixed, or is this offense just feeding off the worm, so to speak? C.J. Stroud in that game, 244 yards, no picks, 4 touchdowns. Everyone called touchdowns. Xavier Hutchinson caught 2 of them. Jalen Noel finally seeing these rookies do more. He caught 1. Nico Collins caught 1. The other rookie who I think could be a real standout, Woody Marks, didn't do as much in this game as he did last one. Nick Chubb did more of the heavy lifting, 11 carries for 61 yards, plus a touchdown. C.J. Stroud did have that long 30-yard run, but I don't know. Is this gonna happen every week? I doubt it. I doubt that we get 4 touchdowns from C.J. Stroud every week. I also, don't know what we're going to get from this running game week to week. Sometimes we get something good. Sometimes we don't. This was decent. Combined, especially you get that crazy C.J. Stroud run, which that's not going to happen every week. You got 167 yards, so you're happy to look at it. But happy at the end. We say, oh, this is 33 carries, 167 yards. We did a good job. But there was a lot of people involved. Damian Pierce, British Brooks. You would think they give Woody Marks more of the workload and just have him and Chubb just do everything. I don't know, and this is another issue with the Texans. I don't know why they put so much capital in these rookies to not use them. If you guys remember, there was a lot of holdouts for the second round because the Texans, amongst other teams, I think the other team was Cleveland, paid their second rounder guaranteed money. And Jaden Higgins, they paid him guaranteed money, and they were one of the few teams to pay a second rounder guaranteed money. They also traded up for the aforementioned Woody Marks and traded a extra pick. So even though I think he's a 4th round pick, you kind of treat him like a 3rd round pick with the assets needed to get him. So why did you go through all this work to get these assets for them to be underutilized? Woody Marks did have his breakout game last week, but you see, even back to this week, he's not getting utilized as much. There's a lot of questions about this Nick Caley offense, and that's really the issue. Coming into the season, like I said, I thought this could be a Super Bowl team, but as great as this defense has been and actually is, I thought, man, they could have maybe the number 1 defense in the league. And then if they can just get a top 14 offense, which I think this can be, especially with stars like Nico Collins and what C.J. Stroud has done, you would think, okay, if they're playing well, they can do that. But looking at them now, I kind of just see them as a team they're just picking over, leftovers, so to speak. I don't know if they have enough talent to hang with the big boys. And that's what we're going to find out after their bye. Are you going to be able to beat the Seattle Seahawks, the Denver Broncos, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Jaguars, who already beat you? Are you really capable of hanging with these teams? These teams are for real. These teams all have real scouts, by the way, something you don't have. So are you able to beat and compete with these teams? Now, you should be able to beat the Titans after that, but then you got the Bills, the Colts, the Chiefs, for whatever they are. With the Chiefs, you got to deal with the refs. The Cardinals, still, a middle of the pack team at least, and they compete with a lot of tough teams in their division. And you got the Raiders, who are looking like they're going to be a walkover. Chargers, they're up and down pause. You got the Colts to end the year, and that could be for the division if you play well enough, or it could just be you rolling over for the new division winners after winning it 2 times in a year, or 2 times in a row, I should say. So what are you going to do? You got a lot of tough games. Let me just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to count the Chiefs, 7. I'm going to count the Cardinals, 8. And the Chargers, 9. 10 of these games are tough. You only got a reprieve with the Titans and the Raiders the rest of this schedule. So, yeah, you want to come back from the bye. You want to do, like I said, with the Rams last year and win a bunch of games in a row and then have a great second half or post-bye year. But you got to do it against complete teams, or teams more complete than what you've displayed. I mean, you look at the rankings, they look like a more complete team than they really are. Middle of the pack rushing team as far as yardage, 19th in passing. You don't look too bad. They look they're kind of mid, but that's not really what's happened. They have 2 games that very much outweigh the averages and make it look like it's something it isn't. Those first few games are just as much their identity as the last two. So I want to see what happens. That Seattle game is going to be very, very important. You're going to Seattle, so it's a road game. Traveling to Seattle sucks because of the distance, because of just where they are in the country. So no matter where you're traveling from, I guess, could be worse than Houston. You could be traveling from Miami or something like that, but still, it's still not the easiest travel day. Plus, a little bit of a time difference. So that's just, I know it's minor stuff, but it does impact things. But you got 2 weeks to prepare for it. You can go early. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and you got to win this game. This is a must-win game. Pretty much most of these games are must-win the rest of the year. That's the thing. I talked about the Rams. After that bye, they went 9-3. So you got to go. You got a little more leeway because you got 2-3 for your current record. You got to still go 8-4 at least. And look at this division now. Not only are the Colts looking like they're for real, but the Jaguars look like they're for real. And again, they all have a scalp, a worthy scalp. They've beaten a team that means something. You can argue that this Ravens team or this Ravens win, if what I say in the Ravens section could age well. It could, especially because they have a much more favorable schedule. But Houston, man, I'm still riding with you. But this offense has to look a lot better and look more consistent. I'm not saying I expect C.J. Stroud to get 4 touchdowns every game. Give me a touchdown and no picks. You know what I mean? Give me something basic. And give me more from this running game. When I picked this team again, I expected more from this offense. I also thought Joe Mixon was going to play. Only God knows if he's coming back. I even heard something that maybe Tank Dell may come back, which I had counted him out personally of this season. Yeah, those would be cool additions. If you can get those players back and get them integrated, they can very much help this Houston Texans team. And I'm not trying to be a downer, I'm not seeing much from this running game consistency. And I think a lot of that's play calling. I think there is something to this running game. It's just not being utilized to its peak. I think there's something to this offensive line. Despite what people think, I think it's better than it was last year. So if you could do a little bit more with this running game, you could definitely take a lot of pressure off of C.J. Stroud. And I mean, Nick Chubb has had some decent games. Woody Marks has had some decent games. I think it's time to just, let's try to make, you got 33 carries this year or this game. See if you can't get to 25 to 30 carries from your running backs every week. I know there was a lot more involved. You had some of the receivers do plays and try to do something tricky, which I'm cool with that too. I'm cool with trying to spice this up. But make sure you get, if Nick Chubb is getting 10 carries, try to get 10 carries, 15 carries from Woody Marks, and then use both, especially Marks in the passing game. You could definitely do something getting those touches to those running backs. If Davian Pierce has to get involved because there's a stamina issue with one of them, that's fine. I mean, even this game, Nick Chubb, 5.5 yards per carry. Obviously they didn't need much to, with all the picks Cooper rushed through. But, man, if you can get 15 to 20 to 30, really you should be like, listen, we're getting 30 carries out of our running back. And we're getting 20 carries, should say, excuse me. We're getting 20 carries out of our running backs, up to 30 touches, including the passing game. We're aiming to do that every fucking week. And if you want to include the wide receivers as a part of a running game, doing some special packages and special stuff, that's cool too. I don't want, C.J. Stroud is more athletic than the average bear, but I don't know if you want him running all the time. Though, if he could take off and get a 30-yard run, you'll welcome it. But that's not something you expect every week. I think this run game can do better, and that'll make the passing game be a lot better. And stop being so hesitant. And maybe they're starting to open up with the rookies. Stop being so hesitant to use the rookies. All right, I've ranted and raved about the Houston Texans for almost 20 minutes. Let's get into the Baltimore Ravens, because that's the intriguing team. So in addition to pick the Texans, I went double homer and picked the Lions. I'm a Lions fan, even more than a Texans fan. And I saw the Lions kind of take the heart of the Ravens. You could argue maybe it happened in the Baltimore, or not the Baltimore game, the Buffalo game the week or a couple weeks before to open up the season. But after that fumble of Derrick Henry's, this team has not been the same. They don't really run Derrick Henry as much. I think even before the injury, and I hate to say it, I think Lamar lost a step. And I say that going off of the Lions game is why I brought it up. We played the Ravens a couple, and I forgot to bring up the Christmas Day game. I forgot in the Texans. But the Ravens had embarrassed us last time we played them too, because that's what's sad about the Ravens. The Ravens have been embarrassing a lot of teams. They've been looking like the best team in the league the past 2 or 3 years until this year. But 2023, they came into Ford Field and they made a mockery of the Lions. But what was apparent, if you saw both of those games, is there's a lot of times where our pass rush did get into the backfield with Lamar but couldn't bring him down. And this time, it was a lot easier to bring him down because he doesn't have that speed. And I honestly think that the Baltimore Ravens have been derelict. I'm not trying to use a big word, just use it. But they've been derelict. They have been neglectful in building out an offensive line for Lamar and just expecting that his athleticism is going to take over everything. And that's before you get to this defense that even when healthy, and you see all the names, I'll get into the names of all the people who've had some injuries of some kind, but even when healthy has not looked their best. And a lot has been made about the defensive coordinator, Zach Orr. Is he a mistake? I think he's only been the coordinator the past 2 years, if I can remember correctly. And these are two of the worst Ravens defense. Last year they weren't that great. And you're wondering, how about, John Harbaugh? Is he the right guy to keep going on as a coach, as a head coach? You got to be wondering, is this time to pass over a new leaf for the Ravens? Is this time to start a rebuild around Lamar Jackson? And there's some evidence that maybe you should, but in saying that, I don't think this year is all lost. Now, I say that health is going to be an important thing. Kyle Hamilton has an injury. Roquan Smith, Patrick Ricard. I already said something about the offensive line. Emory Jones has had some injuries. Ronnie Staley, Kyle Van Noy, Nate Wiggins. So you have some important players in this defense and on this team with some injuries. Kyle Hamilton, one of the best players you would argue in the league going into this year, and him being hurt, and what is going on with this defense the past couple years. Now, similar to last year, or similar to what they ideally want to do this year, I should say. Last year they kind of did better the second half of the season than the first half. If you remember, there was a point where the Steelers were up in their division, like they are now. The Steelers 3-1. So, looking at this schedule, it's doable. You got the Chicago Bears, who I think they're a little tougher than other teams. You can do worse than them, but they're not, some threat. The Miami Dolphins, again, not some threat. Vikings could be a threat. Browns, even though their record is going to not be as good, there's still something there defensively. The Jets, though, the next team, they haven't won yet. I'm sure they will have won by then. You would hope. I hope for AG's sake. I don't want to get fired the first year, which that may happen. Then you got the Bengals, who aren't the same without Joe Burrow, and I don't think he'll be back by that point in the season, if he comes back at all, which is his own can of worms. Then you got the Steelers, but you run off a lot of wins between then. You could be right there with the Steelers. That could be competing for first place if you take care of business. Now, a lot of that is health, especially Lamar Jackson's health. If he's not back after the bye, because you got to go against the Rams, it might as well count that as a loss. And then you go into the bye 1-5. You're going to basically have to go 9-2 to do something. Is it possible? Well, yeah. Listen, if you let's say you do beat Chicago, Miami, lose, I'll give you a loss to the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals. You got to split with the Steelers. You got to split with the Steelers, and then you would have to. You got the Bengals. Then that last 3 games are tough. New England Patriots have shown they're serious, at least in beating the Bills, so they're nothing to sniff at. And then you got Green Bay, and then you got Pittsburgh. So that last third is for real. So you do have to win some tough games, but you could definitely get going. You could definitely be a 500 team by the time, or a plus 500 team by the time you go against the Steelers. Let's say you beat the Bears, the Dolphins. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That puts you at 500. No, wait, I forgot you're gonna be 1-5. Oh, that's 5-5, 500. Then you got the Jets, Bengals. You could be 7-5 going into that Steelers game. You know what I'm saying? That's possible, or even maybe 6-6, 7-5, 6-6. Going into that Steelers game, you just gotta play against peak talent down the stretch. And hey, maybe this is what needs to happen to cleanse all ills. And I'm not trying to put a hex on the Ravens, but what if you get to the Pittsburgh game? Let's say you win that first one. You win the Bengals, and now what are you? 9-5, I believe. Going that's 14. 9-5. Got the last 3 games. If you are to miss the playoffs in a very close race, maybe that's enough to start to move on. I don't know. If you're a Baltimore fan, what would hurt more? Would it be to be just a blip? Let's say this team doesn't get healthy. Let's say they lose to some of these teams like the Bears and the Dolphins. And now we're on the clock. Is that better? Is that more likely to get you? I think John Harbaugh needs to go. Just like I think Tomlin needs to go. I'm not trying to be – I wasn't those guys at first. But I just think, man, once you get to 15, 18, 20 years, sometimes you just need to move on and let a new voice come in. And there's other teams that you could go to, and your expertise can be shown. 'Cause that's what happened with Andy Reid, and it worked out for everybody involved. And I think that might be what John Harbaugh and Tomlin both need in the NFC or AFC North, I should say. And if you disagree, that's fine. But what do you think will be better for this franchise long term? You got Lamar Jackson, one of the best players in the league. It looks like a lot of these other players on this team that you built, it looks like this run is over. And I hate to say that, but it looks like it is, and you're going to have to start a rebuild with Lamar as that central piece, which is going to be tough because, he's already under contract. So, with all that said, is it better to just start to tank, after this bye? Maybe you don't want to come back and be a playoff team, or would it be better to try to make the playoffs? Let's say I'm wrong and you're able to get into the playoffs as a wild card, or you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers both games and you're able to get in as the division winner. You get one home game, you get knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. Are you happy? Is that cool? You keep doing that. Are we good? I don't know. Now, if you can make a magic carpet ride run, cool, but I don't know if this team's good enough. I think this team is good enough to compete for the playoffs if they try hard. I don't think they're good enough to do all the noise that I thought they would, or make all the noise that I thought they would before the season. I just don't. But you tell me. I've rambled for almost a half an hour about these two teams. I think they both are going – it looks like they're going in opposite directions, but they may be going in the same direction. We'll see. They got buys coming up. We'll see how they do after their buys. They're going to have to face and beat real teams. If either team is going to turn around, they're going to have to face and beat real teams. They're going to have to get healthy, especially when you talk about Baltimore. A lot of issues. And then even when they're healthy, they're going to have to execute. Texas, again, they have some health issues too, because who knows what's going to happen with Tank Dell, because again, I hear that he was even thinking about coming back this year. It was kind of a shock. And only God knows what's going on with Joe Mixon. So we'll see what happens with both of these teams. Maybe neither makes the playoffs, maybe both, maybe one. We'll see. What do you think about the Houston Texans and Baltimore? What do you think about me covering these bad teams? And what do you think about my football coverage? I'm still learning. I'm still trying to do my best. We'll talk about more later. Peace.